Today you're going to learn about Prospera, the startup city in Honduras. The only place besides El Salvador that has Bitcoin as legal tender right now. And the session is not exactly as scheduled, right? So because the presentation after is also about a business in Prospera, about the Bitcoinization of the island, right? So we're going to merge those two together, and we're going to have like a full hour of Prospera. First, Ricardo will talk about the business advantages of moving to Prospera and doing a business from there. I will talk about, I will tell you my story, why I moved to Prospera and founded ABC Fund that's based in Prospera. And third, we hear about the Bitcoinization of Roatan by the founder of a Bitcoin education center on the island. And we have loads of time for question and answers after. So note down questions as we go, and really looking forward to this. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I see some faces here that I recognize from outside. It's great to have you here. And it's very exciting for myself to be here as a Honduran in El Salvador, seeing how the Bitcoinization has been working and actually being excited about paying everything in Bitcoin for a while. But right now, I want to tell you about Honduras Prospera. So Honduras Prospera is a special economic zone located in the island of Roatan in Honduras, right up the north of the country. So to understand what Prospera is, we got to ask ourselves, what drives prosperity at a city scale? So across time, we've noticed that in countries such as ours in Latin America or just developing countries around the world, prosperity is something that is scarce. It's hard to come by. And in the case of Prospera, we have the intention, the goal, and the mission to catalyze prosperity, to bring people together in a place where people can live, work, and essentially like have their full lives, not only for businesses, for individuals to just be in a place that is freer. If we look at examples of how charter cities or special economic zones in the world have brought prosperity, we have clear examples right here with Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Dubai, and Singapore. All of these places started their economic growth by the implementation of special economic zones that, by applying better regulations than what they had in the host country, they were able to catalyze that economic growth and make it as the great meccas of prosperity that they are right now. We can see from the 1950s, 60s, and on, these cities have achieved a great deal of prosperity. And how have they done this? By providing three main things, which is good security in regards of how the regulation works, good regulation itself, and clear access to justice. We can see that these cities historically came from nothing and became super cities with a lot of technological advancement and a lot of prosperity for their individuals and citizens. So Honduras Prospera itself applies these key elements of legal stabilities, legal security, access to justice, and ease of regulation to essentially become one of the powerhouses of the world in terms of business development. On a study created by one of the big fours, Ernest Young, Honduras, by applying Prospera's regulation right in that city in Roatan and its possible hubs, has placed the Doing Business Index for Honduras with that model of Prospera among the top 10 places in the world to do business. And why is that? That is because Honduras establishes throughout Prospera different mechanisms of protection. So we have a law, the Organic SETA law, SETA meaning Zones of Employment and Economic Development, that was passed after a constitutional amendment back in 2013 that was passed by the majority of the Congress. And then we also have that constitutional protection besides international treaties that provide us with a 50-year legal stability, which means there's plenty of space and time to develop businesses that can actually leave a mark on the world. Doing business in Prospera is really easy. That's kind of the main thing here, right? That's what we're looking for. A place where doing business is uncumbersome. It's really nothing that is rocket science. It's very straightforward. And one of the things that we're most interested in sometimes is taxation. And Prospera will deliver simplicity on taxation by implementing real easy tax forms. Tax filing is a one-pager, takes less than 5 minutes. Our taxes are extremely low. We're talking about a 1% tax on income tax, on business, 5% for individuals after a $16,000 tax break a year, and a 2.5% value-added tax. So right off the bat, the taxes are super simple, super easy to pay with, and also might I mention that we are a very crypto-friendly jurisdiction. All of our fees, our taxes, even our real estate that is for sale, can be purchased with Bitcoin. So on average, the saving on taxes that people can get, and as you can see portrayed here on this table that I'm sorry, it got a little bit squished, but Prospera's taxes for a $250,000 a year revenue business, it's at $7,500. Now the optimization of regulation for growth. So Prospera has adopted better practices from across the world to make it the easiest regulation for people to apply to. All right? So this is one of the main things that differentiate Prospera from other special economic zones, and that is the fact that you can have something that is called a regulatory election. So say that you think that there is a good place in the world where you want to start up a business because the regulation that they have is pretty straightforward, pretty easy for that specific line of business you're trying to get into. However, that is not necessarily the best jurisdiction to do it. The regulation is fine. However, all the other regulation and taxation that surround it might be a little cumbersome or just a big enough of a pain not to just go and invest in that specific jurisdiction. So with Prospera, what you can do is that you can adopt a better practice regulation from any other place in the world, especially if it's a best practice, like 24 countries of the OECD, for instance. And then you can just submit yourself for this regulatory election and just get that specific regulation to work for your business. So one example that I like to use is, for instance, we have learned, or at least have been fed, that the Germans have the best regulation for car manufacturing. They have the highest quality for car manufacturing. And say you want to open up a car manufacturing company, but you believe that maybe Germany is not the best place to do it because there's a lot of other regulation that's not optimal for what you want to do. In Prospera, you can come and say, I want that specific German car manufacturing regulation, and I'll bring it into Prospera for my business, and the rest is going to be easy and less bureaucratic than it is because Prospera's other regulation is much more simple. So you can apply, as I was mentioning, up to 24 countries from OECD. You can use the Honduran regulation, the Prospera's regulation, or, hear this out, you can even propose your own new regulation. So you've been in the business for over 10 years, and you've tried different jurisdictions around your time, but you say you are able to create a better regulation that works best for your business. Well, you can do it. Just grab up your team of lawyers or by yourself, draft up a better regulation for what your business is, and then you will propose that regulation to the Prospera Council that is going to make sure that that regulation that you're proposing fits the standard, and the standard is going to be as good or better regulation than what Honduras has to offer. If it accomplishes this goal, then it's sent to the Committee of Adoption of Better Practices, which is the Honduran government overseer, and they're going to determine the same thing. It's going to go over the same standard test and say, okay, yeah, this is the best regulation. And they would apply it, and then now you have your most optimal regulation made by yourself, and that it can also be used for some other people who said, I do like that regulation.
How long does that process take to become active legislation?
It depends on how complicated your regulation might be, how big it is, what it is intended for. Less than a month. All right, so forming an entity is very straightforward. Prospera as a jurisdiction, we've mimicked the success that Estonia has had with their digital governance platform, and we've created as well, with the help of Estonian experts, an eProspera platform that allows for you to create your businesses completely online, and essentially able to have all your platform in one solid place that grants you access to your personal residence information, your insurances, your businesses, and even your real estate or arbitrations in a case you need one. So for comparison, in Honduras, it takes around 42 steps to actually build a business, 11 for compliance, in the US 6 or 4, but Prospera has 3 to 1 steps. It's really easy, as literally filling out a form online. Filling out that takes you around 30 minutes if you're really looking into the fine print. But it's really easy, really straightforward, and in less than 24 hours, you get your own residency, and after those 24 hours, you apply for your business, and depending on whether it's regulated or non-regulated, you can also have your business running up in less than 3 days. Obtaining permits in Prospera is really easy and not even mandatory. Permits are kind of an old thing. So once you incorporate into Prospera, you sign something that is called an agreement of coexistence. This becomes a social contract that you sign where you subject yourself voluntarily to follow that jurisdiction of Prospera with all the regulation, and you have access to all the legislation that has been passed for Prospera. And if this is something that you like, you sign it and you become an e-resident or a physical resident of Prospera. And inside of that, you have everything you need to know about Prospera and everything you need to know to do business. So getting a permit is not necessary because I already told you the rules. This is what you can play with. And as long as you play within the rules, then you're fine. There's no need for getting additional permits unless you want a shiny paper that you can put on a wall or show to any other agency in the world to say, yes, I have a permit for this jurisdiction. Now, superior legal resolutions, this means that in that agreement of coexistence that you already signed, you're also getting an arbitration clause, and I'll just go into this one. An arbitration clause for default arbitration. So in Prospera, any issue you have gets solved within arbitration rather than going to national court systems. Why is that? Because that would take you up to 2 to 3 years to solve an issue. And as startup and entrepreneurs that we might be, we know that we cannot wait 2 to 3 years to get our money back in any conflict. So arbitration gets solved in 6 months to 12 months, depending on how big of an issue is and how much money is that you're looking to get paid in damages. So that already guarantees that whenever you're doing businesses or investing inside of Prospera, you get your money back within 6 months to 12 months. Now, in regards to development, right now, we are building 4-story complex or 3-story complex buildings. We're already at 14 stories of the first building, which is going to be open for businesses around May next year and open for residents by November next year. This is going to be a mixed use, so the first floors are for office, and then the other floors on the top are for residences. This is our first beta building. This is where we actually proved that we have regulatory autonomy, that our zoning regulation was valid. So we are in the host island of Roatan, where they already have a municipality, and this municipality recognized the autonomy that we had in this jurisdiction and allowed us to build under our own regulation. And that's what actually has helped us build this, because this is already the highest structure that is currently in Roatan. This is our beta building, the proof of concept that I mentioned. This currently is used as a mixed co-working space for people to come and just sit down and work, and some people are renting offices for their businesses and hiring Honduran locals. So this is where we're at. This is 700 total acres. However, I haven't updated this presentation, but it's currently at 1,000 acres with all the land that we have incorporated. Not all of it is adjacent. So we already have a hub system incorporated where certain areas are going to work for either industrial or financial centers. So in our first 58 acres, we are developing what we're calling the beta site, where everything is starting up from the ground zero. And then we also have the Pristine Bay area, which is a more deluxe resort that you're going to see in a second. And this resort has already some infrastructure in comparison to the first 58 acres, which was absolutely barren. There was nothing there. And we're building a new city from scratch, where we're going to have office spaces, residential areas, hotels, hospitals, and different other industries. And this is Pristine Bay. This is a deluxe resort that is inside of Prospera, where you can go currently and stay at. This eventually is going to have more space for retail, commercial plazas, and open for business. It's a premium stay. It has pools, it has beaches, it has more amenities. And we also have one of the biggest golf courses in Honduras, designed by Pete Dye. 3 restaurants with 2 bars that you can already go and enjoy on a private beach, and a resort adjacent under the 2nd biggest coral reef in the world. It's one of the prime spots in the world to do scuba diving, and you're more than welcome to visit. And this, well, I think Niklas might get into this later, but this is just a quick table in comparison to how crypto works in Prospera. We're currently, again, mentioning that we accept all of our fees, all of our payments, all of our taxes can be paid in Bitcoin. And, of course, there's no capital gains tax. All right. So that's a summary of what Prospera is. I'll be hanging around for questions, and you can just mingle with me outside. And I'm just going to go throw the ball back to Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Right, so how do I... Thank you. Thank you, Ricardo. I want to provide you with a little case study, and tell you the story of why I decided to move to Prospera and start a VC fund there. There's also be another case study shortly thereafter, Dusan Matushka, who founded a Bitcoin education center on the island. So you get more Prospera over the next 2 case studies. The name of it is Infinita, and I call it the Startup City VC. But let's go back to 2019. I was living in Berlin. I had a really great life. I had a really great job as an entrepreneur, and I had great friends. I had a boat that I built and took out on the Spree a lot, and everything was great, right? But then 2020 happened, and we had COVID, we had lockdowns, and what I realized or what I learned is that in times when things are good, you don't question or think about the problems that exist, right? So I learned that lesson both for my own life, why did I accept 40, 50% taxes in Berlin and things like that, and shitty government services. And also in the company that I worked for, like I created a new product from scratch that they recently raised a 36 million Series B with. So I just got to the realization that these are problems and I now need to go on my own to fix it. So then 2 things happened, or 1 thing happened. I met the love of my life on a business trip in New York City, and we were separated for 4.5 months because of the lockdowns. But both of us had the same dream. So we want to go out, we want to see the world, and we want to start our own businesses and become independent. And we said the first country that lets us in, we're going to go there, and we're going to follow our dreams. And this is what we did. So in the middle of 2020, we were 2 upstarts, and we wanted to go on the biggest possible mission for our lives and our businesses. Like, what are the biggest problems we could solve, right? And I wanted to think about what can I do as an entrepreneur? What are the biggest disruptions we need? We know that we need to disrupt the financial system. We need to disrupt healthcare, real estate, education, space travel, everything, right? But what I learned was that time and time again, what's standing in the way of innovation is bad government regulations. In the medical field, there's something that's called Eroom's law. And it's the reverse of Moore's law. Moore's law meaning computing power increasing roughly every 18 months by 2 times. The opposite is true in medical innovation, in new drug development. Despite Moore's law, like that's crazy. It became so apparent to me during COVID. We already had several technological revolutions in gene therapy, CRISPR, and gene editing, and all these things, but we're not using them because the process costs hundreds of millions and takes 10 or 15 years to bring it to the market. But what can you do as an entrepreneur, right? So I was very frustrated because, you can't change the rules, right? That was until I heard about Prospera, right? So I read an article on Scott Alexander on Austral Codex 10, and I read about the novel regulatory system in Prospera, and I saw pictures like that, and I was like, oh my God, right? This could solve it. But probably like you having right now the reaction, or probably anyone had was like, is this a scam? How real is this? Is this like some hubris people, right? So I said, okay, I want to check this out. But I want to check it out really deeply. So what I did was I organized an independent conference, the first independent conference in Prospera in April this year. And I invited other entrepreneurs from around the world that were curious to come to Prospera to see it and check it out for themselves. And we did that, and we had a really fantastic, and what really struck us when we came there was just how real it was. Like all that stuff is already there, these construction sites, there's the Better building, which is beautiful, like you enter Pristine Bay, and it's like, oh my God, you guys really exist. Like this is really a place, and it's beautiful. It's on this Caribbean paradise island. The island is safe, there's an international airport. It's like, wow, this is amazing. But most of all, what really made me fall in love with this was the community of people. So there's loads of Hondurans that come there to seek a better life, right? So for many, especially educated Hondurans, their option is only to go to the United States when they're very ambitious, right? But now, some of them told me, like, hey, I have the opportunity to succeed and help my own country in the process, right? So everyone in Prospera is treating this as their life's mission and project, and I think that fosters an especially great spirit of, hey, we're in this together, right? This is our life's mission. We want to build this. And on the last day of the conference, I organized a pitch competition. And I was like, wow, all these ideas that I had before, how to disrupt like healthcare and education, things like that, everything is possible now. So what do? Right? I can't possibly decide. So I said, okay, I do a VC fund, because this way I don't have to decide, and I can help other entrepreneurs to disrupt all these major industries. So, and after that pitch, Eric Bryman, the COO of Prospera, came to me, and he said, okay, Niklas, we want to help you do it. What do you need? Right? And we'll also hear about from Dushan later, who had the same experience at the same conference. But yeah, it happened. Now Infinita is a real thing. And I'm planning to make the first investments before the end of the year, and in some Prospera companies, but also some companies outside that I see on the same trajectory. Right? We want to change the financial system. We want to change the medical system. We want to disrupt the world of atoms. I'm also organizing several conferences. I didn't came here to promote this. It's a bit too short term anyway, right? But if you're spontaneous, you can take a flight tomorrow or on Friday to come over to the FinTech and DeFi Summit that we're organizing on the island.
How much is it?
How much?
Yeah.
Like
What's it cost?
It's like the ticket fee is $300. But we can talk about that after. Yeah. Yeah.
There's also a direct flight from here to Roatan.
Yeah. And what I want to do with these conferences really is to recreate that experience that I had in the first conference, right? I mean, we can tell you all about how great, like I was honestly fascinated by the regulatory system in Prospera. I think it's the most innovative regulatory system in the world. I mean, you can choose your own regulations, and you like have a market for arbitration and insurance to assess how risky your business is, right? It's a market for law and for regulation. I think that's just so brilliant. And Prospera is really the only ones in the world that are doing it this way, right? But I can tell you all about this, and it just requires a lot of context to explain it. But better is just to show it, right? So you have the experience that I had, I hope, if you join one of these conferences. I organize several more next year if you can't make it to this one. And yeah, that's it. I'm really excited to be a citizen, an e-resident of Prospera, and be part of this community. And with that, I would like to give it to another fellow resident of Prospera, to Dushan, to talk about his experience in the Bitcoinization of Roatan, the island that we're on.
Any questions? If you have questions on you.
Should we do questions already and then do the? Okay.
Yeah, so any questions? Anything you would like to know about?
How much do you...
That was quick. Wait, you already started. Go ahead. Go for it.
Residency. How much do you have to invest in a business for onboard residency if you want to stay more than 3 months?
All right, so the regular cost of business maintenance a year, including your own individual residency and all the fees you have to pay, it's around $800 a year. That is more or less the cost for incorporation of yourself, your insurance, the entity itself, certificate of organization, and that guarantees a full access to the whole platform. Let's go from top to bottom. Yeah.
Can you talk about the agreements you have with Honduras? Is there like some sort of tax sharing or any other sort of
Yeah.
relationship that you have?
Yeah, so absolutely. So Prospera came to life in 2013. Well, not Prospera, but the SETA law, which is the law that allowed for Prospera to exist, came to life in 2013 after a constitutional amendment to create a new subdivision of territory in Honduras, which are the SETAs. So by that law, the companies under the SETA law would be granted functional autonomy to self-regulate and tax collect with a lot of, a lot of conditions, of course, for the main company that is directing everything that's happening in the zone. One of them being that 90% of the employees have to be Honduran, because the zone is at a zone of employment and economic development. The whole purpose is to bring the best of the world and mix it with the best of Honduras has to offer. The best Hondurans are able to provide those services. And then we also have a tax sharing agreement, which is 12.5% of the revenue that is originating inside of Prospera goes to the main government on the way of 5 trusts that go to the executive power, the Supreme Court, the Congress, the municipalities, and also the military. This way.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for what you're doing for the entire war, my friends. We've been following your work. We are a team of people that are coming from Colombia. We are wishing to do the same in many other places because my question is about this, about, sometimes government change, their points of view. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, you've had a little bit of riskier times because of some changes that have been going on the Honduran government. So, how do you see the future? We need to have like several different places in order to be honest, to be jumping, and we'll have helicopters or spaceships or I don't know.
Drones. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So as I was mentioning at the beginning of the presentation, the organic set of law, so the law that gives life to Prospera, inside of the law, it already includes in the second to last article that in the case of repealing the law, it still has a 10-year transitional period for existence, right? So even if the government changes and repeals the law, there's still 10 years of guaranteed rights the government has to respect. Besides that, Honduras is subjected to the CAFTA-DR Convention, which also protects American investment in Honduras for up to 40 years. And then you have the Kuwaiti investment agreement with Honduras that protects for an extra 10 years. So we have effective 50 years guaranteed of stability inside of Honduras. And of course, yes, governments can become crazy at any point in time. We're expecting that this current government in Honduras actually will respect our acquired rights. Like, there's everything already filed, everything is on paper, everything is in order. So we don't see ourselves going anywhere. We are here, we're operating, and if you go into our social media at Prospera HN, you can see that we're still hiring people on bulk. Every week we have a new hire, even up to 4 hirees. We're still building under all regulations. Myself, I'm customs director, so I'm still importing and exporting things tax-free under the specific regime. So even everything that's going on with the government, we're still being able to operate as we should. And Prospera's future development is to eventually say, we're going to create competitive governance, and other countries will see the benefits that Prospera bring to Honduras and will want to replicate that success the same way we're doing it, as an example, from Singapore, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Dubai. We're looking for our success to become a doorway for other countries, such as Colombia, to say we want to adopt a similar system. And Prospera will be there to tell them, like, we'll gladly be the promoter and organizer for that, so in your country. Here.
Well, congratulations for what you have achieved so far. I would like to ask you, if we're a couple with 3 little children, how will it match with this Prospera?
So Prospera is modeled to be a place to work, live, and play. So you have all the touristic things and the amenities of a hotel and recreational areas, but also inside of our master plan, we already have designs for hospitals, schools, universities, apartment buildings, residential areas. So it's meant for you to come with your family, whether you're gonna just retire there and enjoy the paradisal island where we're located at, or you just wanna come and invest and open up your own business. And if you have your own family, you will have schools, and not only any school that is under the Honduran regime, but schools that can be tailor-made for whatever purposes you want the child education to be. We have Montessori schools already established inside of Prospera. We have other non-conventional schools that are teaching more technical skills for people in high school to actually learn more practical skills for whenever they want to go and pursue the world. So yeah, it's a place for people to come with their own families. Those that I just mentioned, yes, they are. I don't run the schools, but do you have it?
40 kids?
Yeah.
Including all the kids of the CEO of Prospera?
Yeah, even the CEO has the kids there, yeah.
To have kids in Prospera?
Yeah.
That's very important because maybe that might be overlooked.
No,
we're trying to build a community. Community, it's a whole bunch of
family is usually one of the cornerstones for a community.
People that live in